Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Anan Gilang Fakhruddin, and now I will explain about analysis of poetry. So, what is poetry? Poetry itself is a written work in English which has aesthetic elements as well as deep meaning. Many people think that poetry and poem are same. Of course, that is a big mistake. A very striking difference between poetry and poem lies in the presentation of the form of the work, and also emphasized by the definition of poetry according to the Cambridge Advanced Learning Dictionary. The definition of poetry is poem in general as a form of literature. Poetry is written art in which a poet uses language to add aesthetic quality and semantic meaning. In a poetry, figurative language is usually inserted, which makes the poetry more beautiful. This figure also has a various type. Poetry is usually in the form of stanzas or paragraph and cantos or chapter, in which there are various structural variations such as rhyme, meter, imagery, allegory, figurative language, and so on. Poetry is said to be the most unique literary work because it is created from the poet's deepest contemplation. However, in understanding its meaning, we must relate poetry to the history, the author, and the conditions in which the work was created. So, how do you analyze poetry? First is read poetry more than once. Start by reading the poetry silently first, then read it aloud. Take time to read the poetry. Every word and line in the poetry is an important element. And then, analysis of the title of the poetry. Look for a clue to the meaning of the poetry in the title. Even if you look at the title before reading the poetry, look again at the title after you've read the poetry a few times. Sometimes a title can provide important clue to a poetry deeper meaning. And then listen to the rhythm of the poetry. Think about whether the poetry needs to be read quickly or slowly. Several poetry are packaged to be read quickly and the words contained in the same to collide with each other. Meanwhile, the rest of the poetry need to be read slowly or even solemnly. And then observe the separation or breakdown of the poetry. Poetry is often divided into segments called stanza. The segments are usually separated by skip lines in the poetry. Look at the poetry and count in the number of stanzas. Think about the relationship between each stanza or the transition from one to another. Also consider the difference between each of the stanzas. 5. Determine the rhyme same in the poetry. Observe whether the rhyme same in the poetry follows a certain pattern. Poetry usually rhymes at the end of the lines, but some poetry also use rhyme within or in the middle of the line. Think about whether your existing rhyme scheme make you pay more attention to certain words, and whether that expands or impacts your interpretation. And then recognize existing forms of poetry. Use the rhyme and meter scheme for English poetry. To determine the form of or type of poetry, some of the poetry are packaged as free verse without form, but other poetry follow a certain pattern. And then the last is get to know the narrator and listener of the poetry. It should be remembered that the narrator is not always the poet himself. Read the poetry in its entirety to find out the narrator of the poetry. See if you can imagine their age, gender, or personality. After that, think about the listener or interlocutor. And how is literature in digital era? So, in digital era, literature helps develop one's critical thinking skills in the search for 21st century. competencies from the digital technology. It helps people, students, and children to gain a better understanding of society, resulting in literature to cultivate greater empathy for others. Studying literature is important because, in essence, it improves reading skills. It helps to see world, people, places, things, events through different eyes and through different points of view. Literature has a great impact on the development of society. It has shaped civilization, changed political systems, and exposed injustice. So that's all the explanation about the analysis of poetry. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.